So, principle number 7, perhaps the most important principle to learn, is that your body has a natural, predictable healing process. And your body is designed to feel and heal. Ideally, life would happen. You would feel the energy and emotions. Emotion is energy in motion. You would feel safe to feel it. You would express it and allow it to move through you, and it'd be released in the moment. This is the body's natural healing process, what I call the somatic release process. This is also why animals in the wild don't get trauma. They naturally just kind of shake this energy off them. So here's a video of a natural stress release.
Okay, talk.
Is this normal? I'm not cold. I'm just shaking.
Why are you shaking?
Look.
So what's happening in the video, and apologies if that is triggering people,
Are you
but
sure you're not cold?
they've just been on a hunt. They've obviously shot some deer, and her body is shaking out this energy. Because she doesn't have any negative attachment to the shaking, she's not suppressing it.
Tell them what happened.
This is a very, very normal response. Her body's shaking out the survival energy that's in her body. Again, here's another example of a
Some
dog
people
shaking.
said they were hearing puppy screams. We couldn't even see him at first. We were about to leave, and that's when we saw him. Initially, he was very scared. He was shaking, and it was evident that he was not okay. We were very happy that he was alive, but
super common. If anybody has any dogs or animals, you will see them shake stress out of their body to kind of like to reconnect themselves. If they have a funny interaction with someone, even if they're kind of handled in a particular way, they'll automatically shake that stress out. Our bodies have a natural way of shaking this release. Here's another famous video of a polar bear shaking out or coming back into connection.
There. Looks like a fatty. We'll go for that one, Dennis. Here, oh yeah, absolutely perfect. He decides to get a bit bigger neck and so on. Holy snapper. If you watch that animal after he finishes convulsing, you'll see, because he's aware of the fact that we're all around him, and it's a very stressful experience for an animal like a polar bear. After he settles down, and then he'll start doing a couple of deep breaths, and then he'll breathe really nicely, and it'll really... Now look, here he goes. See how he's breathing there now? You can see, so that even though it looks a little unpleasant to look at him convulsing like that, in fact, it lets off all that stress, and he then is able to relax and sleep the thing off.
So again, this is why animals don't get trauma, because they trust the intuitive process. And this is a quite a nice breakdown of that video that we just saw.
Wild animals go through traumatic events all the time, but they don't develop PTSD. Domestic animals might, but wild animals don't. Why? Well, that's what I want to explore in this lesson. It's interesting to see how much animals in the wild can go through this process all the time. There's an excellent video clip that you can find on YouTube of a polar bear who's being chased in the tundra by scientists that are flying in a helicopter. He's running along on the tundra, and they're flying behind him with a tranquilizer gun. They want to knock him unconscious so that they can do some tests. So we see the polar bear running, and he gets shot with this tranquilizer gun. He falls unconscious during the highly activated state of flight. He's got his sympathetic nervous system turned on with flight. When we're knocked unconscious with an anesthetic, like this polar bear was, it's actually a medically induced form of freeze. And we humans go through it all the time when we have surgery. So the polar bear then, after they do some tests for an hour, he comes out of his anesthetic and he wakes up. And in this clip, as he's waking up, we get to see him go through a series of moves. First, because he had gone into the freeze while he was running to get away, he first has to go through a process of completing that flight response. So in the video, you see his little legs moving as he completes the flight response. And then we see his body begin to recover from all of that stress activation. He discharges it, and we see that with his legs start shaking. And then his ventral brake comes back online, and we see him take some slow, deep breaths so that his cardiovascular and respiratory systems can become regulated. And finally, we know that he's come out of freeze when he starts to move his head and neck to look around. That's showing us that his ventral parasympathetic nervous system is back online and that he has reoriented to his external environment. In other words, for the polar bear, allostasis is working properly. His survival brain and nervous system automatically moved their way through the hierarchy of defenses. He mobilized energy to deal with the threat. He selected the most adaptive defense to survive this particular situation, being chased by scientists in a helicopter, and he started a flight response. Then, after he had the medically induced freeze, his body naturally recovered from freeze by completing the flight response, discharging all the stress activation, and then returning to his neurobiological baseline. So, we can be pretty sure that this polar bear did not develop PTSD or any other stress-related disease. Allostasis was working the way it's supposed to. Animals in the wild go through this process all the time. And each time through this process, it actually confers survival benefits. In fact, unless they succumb to a predator, animals in the wild complete this process automatically. They encounter a threat, they successfully defend themselves, and then they recover completely afterwards. Each time through this cycle, they add to their toolbox of survival skills, and they widen their window. In humans, however, because we have a thinking brain that can override this automatic.
So that widening the window that she mentions, imagine it like going to the gym and getting stronger. So each time you go through this release process of being able to discharge this energy, your nervous system actually becomes stronger.
Process controlled by the survival brain and nervous system, we often impede this recovery process. By now, given all we've covered so far, it should be clear that recovery is not up to the thinking brain. Recovery is a survival brain and autonomic nervous system job. And the survival brain will only turn on recovery functions when it neurocepts safety. We humans often override this recovery process because we don't know what it looks like, and most of us were never taught about it. For example, when I was first teaching Marines, they would tell me stories of having been out on patrol in Iraq or Afghanistan. And after the patrol, they would come back inside the wire and they would want to light a cigarette. And they'd be standing there and their hand would start shaking while they were trying to light the cigarette. And they would think, oh my God, I look like I'm such a coward. And so they'd put their hands up under their armpits to stop the shaking. Of course, when they did that, that was their thinking brain overriding the recovery that was naturally trying to happen. As this story shows, we often have thinking brain judgments or narratives that impede our recovery process.
So hopefully that helps to understand things. Now, there are some therapies that help with shaking and things like that, and they create a shaking response rather than allowing it to arise organically. Things like trauma release exercises, even cold exposure. One of the things that I think that cold exposure does is that when you're in that exposure to cold and your body's shaking, the key to kind of overcome cold exposure, like the ice baths or cold showers, is that you relax into it and allow your body to kind of shake and breathe through that process. Essentially, what you're doing is you're getting your body used to surrendering into the experience and into allowing some of that shaking to happen. Now, if the nervous system gets overwhelmed with too much activation or there isn't enough safety available, it gets suppressed and contained in the body. As adults or even older children, we learn to inhibit and suppress this natural release process, and we hide our body's natural responses. So if you don't understand the natural somatic release process, and the somatic release process isn't something that I've created, it's something that I've observed. What I've created a somatic release method is how to navigate this process and how to learn it and how to get your body prepared for it so you can go through it. If you don't understand the somatic release process, when you start to go into this unfolding of your own natural healing process, you're going to judge it, block it, and you're going to stop your body from actually releasing because you don't understand what's happening. So there's 3 stages of the somatic release process. At the beginning, it starts with containment and suppression. So when it is suppressed in the body, there may not be any obvious effects. Everyone is walking around with some form of survival energy or emotions safely contained in their body. For example, you could have had an experience in childhood, but be blissfully unaware as it's not causing any activation in this moment. The next stage is the activation. So if you were to think about something, or for some reason it gets triggered and then activates in the body, the energy is felt and experienced in the body. For example, if you were to think about a memory where you felt overwhelmed, you may notice your heart rate start to elevate. The deeper you go into the activation, the stronger the feelings get as it brings the energy closer to the surface. It will typically get stronger and stronger until it peaks, and then it get lighter and lighter until it releases. The third stage is vulnerable emotions and then release. If enough safety is available, survival mode will deactivate, allowing space to connect with the authentic vulnerable emotions underneath. If you can surrender into the somatic release process, the emotions and the energy will be released via tears, sighs, the breath, yawn, shaking, or movement. Your body can only connect with and release so much energy or emotions at a time based on your nervous system capacity. Just because you've felt through an experience and cried, etc., doesn't mean you've processed all of it. So we need to have the capacity. Say, for example, if you're going over this peak, it's getting stronger, peak, and then getting lighter and lighter and lighter passes through, your body needs to have the capacity to go through the intensity of it. You may start getting to this point where it starts getting more and more intense, and then you're reaching your max capacity, so you cannot complete the process. The more capacity you have, the more you're able to regulate and then bring the intensity down, the easier it is for you to ride that rise into the peak of the experience and allow it to pass through, and then the alarm will turn off. Then you'll have access to the vulnerable emotion underneath it. Many clients of mine say, oh, I felt for this experience before, I know that I didn't disconnect from it and so on. Well, we can only process so much in one go, and you can only feel what you have. You have to feel to heal, but you can only feel what you have the capacity that you have to feel. There's been many experiences of mine where I've felt through it as much as I can. And I've gone to work with somebody, or I've gone to speak even just to our friends about an experience. And all of a sudden I have greater access to the energy and emotions. The reason for this is that through co-regulation, through someone else holding space for me, their nervous system made my nervous system more capable to then connect with the deeper vulnerabilities that I may not have been able to hold space for. Same with, I've had clients where we've worked through something as much as we can. They have no more access, no matter how hard or how much they think about something, they can't access any more emotion, nothing's creating any more activation. But then a year down the line, they give me a call and say, something's come up again. And with that same thought now, because they have more connection, more capacity in their system, they was able to actually access more information, more energy that was in their body attached to it. So how do we unlock the somatic release process? If we actually understand that the goal actually isn't to just release, we want to actually be allowed to feel safe to go through the release process. So you're going to learn and become good at having the release process. So I've created the somatic release method. The somatic release process is your body's natural healing process. I've guided thousands of clients through their own somatic release process. Learning from many successes and many failures has helped me to refine my method to a point where I can 100% guarantee some success. Now, the only reason it won't work is when somebody lacks the foundation necessary. Perhaps they have a lack of capacity, a lack of ability, or lack of understanding, or they have subconscious blocks that's blocking the release process, such as if they don't feel safe to be vulnerable, their body's going to block being vulnerable and accessing their vulnerable emotions when it comes to the release process. Or they lack the necessary support and co-regulation. So we heal in connection. There's a saying that says, you can't do it alone, but nobody can do it for you. So I can't heal for you, but you're very unlikely to fully heal all on your own. You need that support and you need that co-regulation from someone who's qualified and able to give you the support you need. Now, I didn't create the somatic release process as it's just your body's natural healing process that I've observed. However, what I have created is a step-by-step method, the somatic release method, to unlock and allow your somatic release process to unfold as smoothly as possible. The somatic release method consists of 3 parts with a focus on becoming good at feeling and healing, instead of many therapies only looking to process, release, or make the feelings go away, which is a temporary solution at best. Part 1 of my method is re-education, focusing on equipping you with the knowledge needed to get out of your own way and trust the process. That's what this course is all about, to give you the logical awareness and understanding. So hopefully everything I'm saying is making complete logical sense, because this is how your body works. And sometimes as I'm explaining this, there may be a resonance. Sometimes your body can just know something where you're hearing something for the first time, but it almost feels like you're remembering it because you know it's true, because you've had experiences to match what I'm saying, rather than you having tried to understand it. This is like, we first need to have the mental, logical safety before you can even give access to the body. This is why it's part 1. Again, this is why, sometimes psychologists will ask me, what qualifications you have and, what accreditations and so on, because they need the logical safety before they can even access it. The second part is regulate, focusing on learning how to regulate your nervous system so you can control your anxiety symptoms, building your capacity and ability to feel, regulate, and release. This is the foundation for the deeper and more focused release work. Part 3 focuses on release. It first focuses on releasing and rewiring the subconscious patterns blocking the release process, and then learning the somatic release method that enables you to release in the safest, smoothest way without risking overwhelm, and then becoming good at releasing. Trauma release doesn't have to be overwhelming or cathartic like you may have seen elsewhere. Trauma release can be done safely and gently without risk of re-traumatization or overwhelm by working directly with your body. Now, I'll dive deeper into the somatic release method in the How to Heal Anxiety course, including the Anxiety Relief Kit. But if you're interested in working with me and going through the somatic release method one-to-one program, send me a message. You're only going to learn how to release body to body from somebody modeling for you. We learn an embodied process, which means it's a body process, body to body. So this is almost non-verbal. As much as I'm guiding and educating a client verbally when I work with them, they're mostly mirroring my nervous system, and they're learning from my body, my nervous system, and is modeling for them to mirror. As always, if you have any questions, anything that we've covered, I would love to hear from you. So please ask questions in the community, or if need be, please reach out personally.